WWE teased this week that they would have a YouTube or a stream coming up on Friday afternoon to make a big announcement. Already, the rumors around the announcement before it even came up was that it was going to be WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. And when you just look at how the press conference was handled and everything, it seemed pretty clear that that's what it was going to be. As soon as the press conference started and they had the big display up there for the Ring magazine, which is, of course, also backed by Turkey Al Sheikh. You knew where
Mm-hmm.
it was going. They showed the backdrop and everything and the podium, and it already had WrestleMania Riyadh on there.
No
So
tea.
you already knew what the announcement was going to be. Um, yeah. Did you watch this press conference?
I didn't watch the full thing, but I watched all the clips of the announcements and Bianca and Undertaker standing back there and Liv more. There was so many things I saw visually that I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah. So they did make the announcement.
Yes.
Joe Tessitore was really kind of the moderator of it. He brought out all of the WWE superstars, and then, of course, Paul Triple H Levesque, and Shawn Michaels also came out. Turkey Al Sheikh eventually came out. Um, and they announced that officially WrestleMania 43 will be the first international WrestleMania will take place in Riyadh as a part of Riyadh season. Um, this was extremely awkward. I sat and actually watched the entire press conference, and it was very, very awkward.
Yeah.
It You can't really get past the fact that the way that WWE has been doing things for the longest time, and when you think about what WrestleMania represents to this company, it's their crown jewel. It's their big, of course, like figuratively, not literally. It's their
No.
crown jewel. It's
It's the
their,
World Series, it's the Super
yeah,
Bowl, it's their thing.
it's the centerpiece of their year. It's their biggest show of the year, and so um, when they make these kind of announcements, usually there's like fanfare around it, and like when they
Huge
usually have
fanfare.
like big like press conferences and stuff like this, especially in something like Vegas, there's a lot of like fandom around this. The big takeaway from this straight away from me was how cold and withdrawn this was from their fan base.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I mean, of course, because it's an international show and this is an American company, um, already you're already going into territory of like, okay, you know, how much of our fandom from the United States is going to travel for this show.
Right.
But then it's not just like you're doing it in something that was considered, a tourist destination like Paris or London.
London.
Uh,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
you're you're going to Saudi Arabia, and it's more of this trying to push Saudi Arabia as a tourist destination, as this entertainment capital. Based on what I said earlier with Turkey Al Sheikh and his presence in boxing and combat sports presence in Saudi Arabia overall.
Right.
This was kind of a logical next step for a lot of entertainment, and then especially with WWE is one of the first companies to really have this kind of partnership with Saudi Arabia. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
it just tells you where the world's going. I mean, I really thought about this last night. I was like, man, this was even like a subplot in King of the Hill. That's what Hank was doing all this time when the show was off the air. He was working in Saudi Arabia. It's becoming more and more normalized going to Saudi Arabia as either a tourist thing or entertainment or work. It's becoming more of a thing in American culture.
Right.
And I don't know what to make of that. It's a bit I just don't know what to make of it. It's and I think just watching this press conference, it was very apparent how awkward this was because again, you're putting over WrestleMania in 2027, and like the wrestlers are standing back there like with their arms next to each other, just like dead silent, looking dead for it, and
And there's no fans here, right?
there's no fans in there.
Mm-hmm.
All of the announcements that are being made during this press conference, everybody on stage has to clap for it, and it looks so strange. And again, I get that you're trying to sell this as, oh well, just come to Saudi Arabia to go to WrestleMania. It still feels very much detached from their fandom,
It
And
does.
I think when you see the reaction to the news when they played it during Worlds Collide, it's very apparent why. Even when you saw some of the chats during the announcement, the live chats, they weren't great. A lot of
Mm-mm,
fandom doesn't seem on board with this.
mm-mm,
The booze in the crowd tells you everything you need to know.
mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's just necessarily like the negative connotation around them doing WrestleMania. Again, WrestleMania has been billed as this celebration of their year of wrestling. It's their biggest show of the year. And so
Right.
to take their biggest show of the year and put it over in Saudi Arabia, because let's just just take Saudi Arabia out of it for a second. When you think of like international markets and the country that has probably the largest WWE fan base outside the United States, it's probably United Kingdom, right?
Yes. I would say
Uh,
the UK. I saw a lot of people in London being like, I can't believe it wasn't us.
yeah. When you look at like a good amount of the wrestling content that's on YouTube, it's a lot of content creators doing these things from London or England or Newcastle. Like, think of like What Culture, Wrestle Talk, Cultaholic. Think of like the amount of fandom that is in England.
Even
And
a lot of like the stands and the people that
yeah,
run social media, they're all over there. A lot of them are.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about like they just had that meeting with the mayor of London, that was what, like a year ago.
All right. Where they give
And
them the little
so
belt.
when you think about all of that, it's like you're going to do the first international WrestleMania, and it's not going to be in London. That already tells you there's like a disconnect in giving the fans what they want, and us doing this because we're getting paid a big, large, obscene amount of money to do it. And I think that that's was very glaring watching this press conference. And I'm not sitting here saying like, oh well, London was entitled to a WrestleMania. But
No.
I'm just saying that it's clear that there's a disconnect with this regime and the fan base
Yeah.
because this isn't for the fans.
Exactly. I think this is the most disconnected I've ever seen the fans feel. And the point that you brought up about this being WWE's biggest show of the year, their largest kind of time, that's how it is for their fans too. It's their biggest party of the year. Some people plan their years. My first couple of years, like my big trip in of the year or that was going to happen in time was going to WrestleMania week or going to wherever they were going to be. And a lot of people, that's their thing. They depend every year. Even this year when they re-announced Vegas, people were like, not that's not the best, most ideal thing, but they still were like gonna go and still gonna pull up and be all these things. This is the most like you see online fans in the crowd fans and just WWE fans in general be like, we're not in, we're disconnected. We don't like this. We hate this announcement. We hate this press conference. They feel like the press conference wasted their time because there was a leak maybe a week or so ago that this was happening. So people had already kind of had it in their brain. And when you're expecting something, if you're a fan expecting something good for yourself as a fan, and they're like, essentially, we're doing a show that you're not gonna come to. That's like you're
Yeah.
telling like because they try to go with this Riyadh season and it's this tourist destination. We have a WWE store and we have this and there's this big comedy festival and like this is this place to be, but it's not like that. Like
Yeah.
there's listening to women WWE fans and them just being like, there's no, like there's no interest, there's no way to turn me. I'm not like there's nothing good about this. I actually feel gross about this was the most kind of glaring thing because like women have started to take over. These crowds are filled with women wrestling fans who love this shit and want to go and have a good time. And that's not a comfortable space for them. They're not even thinking about starting to go over there. So just like being so disconnected to your fans and essentially being like, we don't care, doing a press conference that feels like a skit, kind of like the bits that I watch, I was like, this doesn't feel like a real events. This feels like some robots put together a thing. And then you start hearing about how much potential money they're getting, Phil, and it's
Of
like
course.
that's a lot of money. Um I don't it's they've been there for so long. The talk has been so different. I've talked about it before. 10 years ago or so, when they started to go here, I was on the little TMZ video talking about, I can't believe these people are going. Everybody's talking about sports washing and like these terrible events that are happening in Saudi, and like how the connection of WWE has to that. The events of them getting stuck over there and the planes and all that crazy stuff that happened. And there was so much vitriol and hatred and anger towards them going over there, but it slowly started to change, Phil. I think the CM Punk thing was a big, I don't know, sigh of relief, but people felt better about it when like he apologized and then everybody kind of turned over a new leaf for him and just started cheering him. And like the wrestlers are starting to kind of put over, no, it's not that bad. Like Bianca talking in the press conference to be like, every time we go, it feels a little bit better, and women are starting to be more empowered. And I'm just like, it doesn't feel right because it's
Uh,
not totally necessarily true, you know?
well, I think that the tide is starting to sway long before this year, and you can see it more and more, and it's just proof that the Riyadh season stuff, and the stuff that Saudi Arabia is doing with their sports authority and like the entertainment uh, end of the propaganda that they're pushing is working. Um,
Yes.
and like I said, it's apparent in just how much we've seen Saudi Arabia
Money,
and
dog.
so much of the rest of the entertainment we've gotten. And it's becoming more and more normalized. Um, but it's just like I think the big difference here is WWE doing like 2 Saudi Arabia shows a year where people can like hand wave and go, "Oh, I have the choice to not watch that, or I have the choice to not support this if I don't want." Um, that's different than WrestleMania being in Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia. This is their
Right.
biggest show, period. Not
Yeah.
just that, this is the biggest show in wrestling. It's the biggest show in this space, and it's in Saudi Arabia.
Did they say anything in the press conference about the 2 night thing?
They did not.
Mm.
Which I've seen people raise the question of, will this mean that there's going to be like 2 WrestleManias? Is there going to be a WrestleMania here stateside and then also a
Mm-hmm.
WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia? Of course, they have not made an announcement for that. I think
No.
that would defeat the purpose of WrestleMania. The whole
Yes.
purpose is that it's a big, you know, biggest show of the year, 1 night event thing, well, 2 night event thing. Now, big weekend thing. If you're doing 2 big weekends, it's not really special anymore.
And I
Um,
feel like I read a couple of things that I read were like they heard, like Saudi heard about that. Like they were like they thought that WWE was going to do like a WrestleMania style or WrestleMania type, and they were like, no, we want the real show. We want the thing.
exactly. They're paying for WrestleMania. They're not paying for you to dilute your brand. They want the brand. That's
Right.
what they're paying for.
Right.
Um, But yeah, it's very uncomfortable. Some of the conversations I've seen about it. I don't want to delve into some of the politics around it. I'm not the most
Ooh,
knowledgeable person to get into politics around this, and
super versed.
I don't want to misspeak on any of those situations that are there. I do think that it continues to be very uncomfortable for me that this company is trying to spin this as, well, we're helping to advance, you know, social commentary around Saudi Arabia. We're trying to, you know, you know, we're trying to get actual change and progress in Saudi Arabia. No, you're not. This is
You're
for a
not.
check,
Yeah.
and that's very clear. And you trying to
Hmm.
spin it otherwise is it's ridiculous. And I
Yeah.
think also, like I said, with the disconnect with the fans, it's very clear under the TKO era that none of that is important to them. We're trying to
Yep.
make as much money as possible, and I think
Oh,
even
that
that,
quote from Mark,
yeah,
the COO. This is he the
yeah,
COO TKO?
yeah, their handling of this Saudi stuff is clearly changed and it's clearly jumped to a different gear under TKO. The
Mm-hmm.
TKO guy you're talking about, I think it's the president, or president or
President.
COO. Mark
Mm-hmm.
Shapiro was the guy that was saying that Vince McMahon was primarily pricing his tickets for families, and he wasn't focusing on maximizing the opportunities to increase set prices like TKO is focusing on doing. I don't know how you hear that as a consumer, as a fan of this company, and feel good about that, because
Right.
the prices has already been such a big talking point coming into this year, and
Mm-hmm.
how it feels like they're eventually going to price their audience out. But it's again where I say it feels like a big disconnect with their audience, because wrestling is supposed to be accessible. Like, I get that entertainment overall is expensive. It's expensive to go to a basketball game. It's expensive to go to a football game. It's expensive to go to your favorite artist's concert. But
Yep.
wrestling was supposed to be different. Wrestling was supposed to exist on this ring below all of that as this affordable, accessible form of entertainment. And when you
Mm-hmm.
try to sell it as mixed martial arts or something that belongs in the same uh tier as other combat sports, yeah, you're going to price out a lot of the rest of this audience, and it shows a misunderstanding of that audience.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you condition your fans to spend a certain way, to think a certain way, to act a certain way, that's what it's going to be. When they switched from the WWE Network $9.99 to other prices to other things and where they go now, I'm still thinking about $9.99. You've conditioned me to this. I've been getting wrestling tickets, buying wrestling tickets for 30 years. Like, I've been going to wrestling shows for a long time. It was exactly that, Phil. It was because you couldn't afford to go to the concerts, or because you couldn't afford to go to basketball. I know I could get a $25 ticket to wrestling, and that's going to be a good seat, and I'm going to have a great time, and it's going to be like a party. And you could bring the whole family, like a family of 4, 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a bunch of tickets for like $80, and you guys are all going to have a good time. Now you can't buy one ticket for $80, and everybody's priced out. I think the thing that is drives me crazy about them, Phil, is they continuously tell us that they give the fans what they want. Like, every time that somebody in power or one of the top guys goes on to a podcast or an interview, they're like, if the fans talk, we listen, we help, we do this. Their fans are all like, no, we don't like this. We're against
Mm-hmm.
this. We wish you would do something different. And they're just la la la. They're just like not listening. They're like, we don't. In this one particular space, they're dark. They don't care what they're talking about. They don't care what you're saying. They're not listening.
Yeah, there's clearly a mixed messaging from Triple H coming out and saying, "Hey, whatever you guys want, we're here to give it to you. Are you ready?" and all this other stuff. And then you get the TKO side, and they're saying something very different. And it
Mm-hmm.
also sometimes feels like you're getting a different message from Nick Khan. And so
Yeah,
it's like you're getting so many mixed messages here.
because Triple H is trying to be our friend. He's trying to be like, I'm in
Yeah,
there fighting for you guys in these war rooms. It's
yeah.
TKO's fault.
Come on in behind closed doors. You want to see behind the curtain? Look, we're transparent, but then also they're like, hey, man, got to pay a little bit more to get in here. Oh, you want to meet the wrestlers? Got to pay a little bit more, big dog. Oh, you want to be able to sit closer to the ring? A little bit more, a little bit more. Give me some more. And so, yeah, I just think that the ticket prices are going to continue to climb, and with
Yeah.
the economy we're in, with the landscape of entertainment right now, I don't think that that looks good. I mean, even with them going to this ESPN streaming platform, this is kind of the norm for sports right now. Just think about how many streaming platforms you have to watch basketball or football right now. And so it just feels like this is just the norm, and WWE being a part of that isn't surprising because it's big business. But again, wrestling is supposed to be different. Wrestling doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist in the same realm as some of these other forms of entertainment, and
Right.
trying to make it seem like it does and market to everybody again seems like a big misunderstanding of what wrestling always was.
Totally. I, I think it's also interesting that the UFC being under the same banner and how they've been moving and their streaming deals, and it's when they announced that streaming deal, Phil, with Paramount and the conjunction with the White House card, that's the most disconnected I've ever seen UFC fans.
Yeah.
Like, that's the most I've seen UFC fans be like, I might be good. I don't like this. The shows have started to dilute. It hasn't been as great. And this big announcement has gotten me off. And so for it to immediately to happen to WWE fans also, and everybody's kind of placing the blame on TKO. It's an interesting thing. But
Well,
and then for TKO to come out and be like, "We don't care. We just want your money." Like, what?
of course. Well, what do you expect them to say? But I mean, people that are acting like, oh, like the Shapiro quote, it baby faced Vince. But I'm like, but Vince sold the company to TKO. So, I mean, yeah, it showed what that Vince understood the wrestling audience, and he understood that he needed to price his product to his audience. Yeah, he understood the audience because he had been working in wrestling for over 40 years, and his dad, you know, his dad gave him the blueprint to work with. He's been in wrestling
Right.
and around wrestling long enough to understand the audience. But he still sold the company to TKO.
I also
um,
think it's interesting that tonight there's a gigantic, probably one of the biggest boxing fights we'll ever see in our generation. That's going to be streamed on Netflix for like not a lot of money, and kind of feels like a prime boxing thing. And the WWE is doing the opposite. Like they're like, we want more
well,
money, we want more things. We don't really want it in that way.
Well, that's interesting because this boxing fight that's on Netflix, look at all the people that are linked to this. The Ring magazine,
Mm-hmm.
this Max Kellerman show that's coming out that's also attached to Ring magazine.
Dana White was talking. This is the most positive I've ever seen him talk about a boxing fight.
Yeah. All of these things are connecting. All of these hands are in pockets. Different conversations are being had behind closed doors. Um,
Jesus.
yeah, the guy Turkey is behind a good amount of the stuff that's coming to Netflix, and like I said, his fingers are all in the combat sports world. So that's what it is, and that's why when people are like, "Oh, well, just don't support this. Don't give your money to this because you don't want it going." I don't you don't know where your money is going at this point with so many forms of entertainment. It's wild to think about. It's hard because it's a lot. It's a lot going on behind closed doors that looks very shady, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was asking this question multiple times on Ask Grapsody. What is the process like? If a fan, a diehard wants to go, they can just go. Like I don't understand. Like I don't know anything like that because
I
it's
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It doesn't seem as easy as like I'm gonna book a flight to Vegas or I'm
yeah.
gonna book a flight to
It
fucking Chicago. You know.
Yeah, I think that you can. I don't think the travel stuff is the issue here. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's an issue with some of the, and I say the word issue for a lack of a better word, but I guess like the change of approach to your travel is just going to be with how different things are done in Saudi Arabia. Because, for example, isn't it a isn't it a dry town? You can't drink. And even if you like, just let's just say you're a woman and you go to WrestleMania every year, you and all of your girlfriends go and you meet all your friends there for WrestleMania. You can't go without a chaperone.
Can't do that. Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it's going to change a lot of people's approach to travel, and some people are not going to make the trip because of some of these concessions they will have to make. Especially, you know how Americans are about their freedoms. I'm not going to go there where I can't just do what I want.
I can't take my stuff. I can't have my things. I can't smoke freely. I can't drink
Yeah,
freely. Nah.
and of course, a lot of Americans are not the most sensitive to other people's cultures or beliefs either. And so it's like
It's a
I
fact.
don't know that you're gonna have the comfortable conversations you think about just traveling to Saudi Arabia and going. Because if it's
Right.
just like, oh, none of this is me just saying that Americans don't want to travel abroad for WrestleMania. Some
No.
will, but I think when you put some of the connotations around traveling to Saudi Arabia, it's different. And again, the part of this is trying to alleviate this connotations and trying to push propaganda to get people to see this as a tourist destination. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're trying to do this to hand wave any of the human rights situations or problematic things going over there. Nope, it's just a
Mm-hmm.
country where there's a lot of money and there's a lot of things going on here that look, man, you can come over here and have fun too. And yeah, very uncomfortable that that's
Uh,
being said. With that said, I've been trying to find this Bianca quote because that was probably one of the more talked about things, and unfortunately, Bianca has been criticized some of the most coming out of this press conference.
Mm-hmm.
Even the way that they led up to Bianca's quote, it felt very contrived. It felt very robotic.
Yeah.
All of this felt like, you know, get to this part of the script, and it none of this felt like
And then this is
authentic
your
to me.
part, Bianca. Do you have your line? Are you
Yeah.
going to be ready when I shoot to you?
Yes. So Bianca says it's amazing. It's amazing to be a part of a lot of great moments. The hospitality, the culture, the crowds are always great. I think Saudi Arabia has become a space specifically for women for making amazing moments and to make history that's not just important to little girls and women to see, but little boys and men and the whole world to see. And every time I go to Saudi Arabia, I see it evolve more and more, whether that's inside the ring with more women on the show or outside the ring with seeing the women on billboards and posters. And that became even more apparent to me last time I went to Saudi Arabia. We had an all women's battle royal. When we came out, every single woman that came out, the crowd had a chant for them. We went backstage. We had a special moment with Natalia because she was a part of the very first women's match in Saudi Arabia. It has just been very special to see where it started and where it's evolved into. It's been an honor to be a part of that progress and that change. And now having WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, it just shows that WWE, it transcends globally and it continues to make history. And as a woman, it's very special to be a part of this.
That was loaded.
This is and let me start with this. I'm sure some of this was get a woman out there to say this, get a woman out front of this. Let's pick somebody like Bianca Belair that people like. Um, this is very tone deaf.
Yes.
I do think, you know, with the way that WWE has presented women's wrestling for the past 10 years or so, and like treating all of these big advancements in women's wrestling as history, I get that side of it of like, okay, this is the first woman to wrestle in Saudi Arabia and all of these other things, and that's making history. And I think that we've kind of trivialized the word making history in some ways in that way.
Yes.
But there are still a lot of women, and not a lot of women, there are still a lot of problematic things happening with women in Saudi Arabia. And this is the side of it where people are like, sports washing is dangerous, because when you're saying it like this, you have a woman working for this company and saying, I see the change and I see the progress every time I come here as a wrestler that's treated like, that's getting 5-star treatment from the country. Yeah, and you can see it
Yep.
that way because they're going to treat you as great as possible every time you come there. But the women in that country are not seeing this advancements in women's rights. That's not happening.
Exactly.
There is no change in progress for women in that country. And to use that as part of this press conference where you're making a lot of money is very tone deaf and very
Mhm.
kind of gross to me. And I can't put this totally on Bianca, like I said, because this is
No.
clearly like she's being trotted out there to say these things. That's where she works. And it's a tough situation to put her in. But again, that's why they did it. Like I saw some people saying, "Well, why can't they just have someone else say that?" Because that's the point of propaganda. That's how
Yes.
propaganda works. You need a
Exactly.
woman to say it to make it feel like, "Oh, this real change is happening." Everybody keeps acting like, "Oh, this was a terrible PR move for us to go here because." What does this mean for your women? And look how glowingly this women's wrestler is talking about her experience working there and going to Saudi Arabia. That's why they're doing it, and it doesn't come off well, man. Um, it's and like I said, that kind of stuff about it, that side. Even if we get past the this is clearly just for money part, that part of it makes me more and more uncomfortable with what we're seeing, man. And again, I'm not the most well versed person in the politics in the Middle East and Saudi Arabia, but when you look into like the actual human rights issues and like the issues with that women are facing there, yeah, maybe not just act like, oh, we're making real change in Saudi Arabia for women. No, you're not.
Yeah, that they made it loaded though. Phil, that quote was because there's points in it where she's like, kids are inspired, little girls are being inspired by seeing us out here. And there's bits of that are like, yeah, like
Yeah,
it's
there are bits
crazy
of that
seeing
are true.
it's crazy seeing women wrestle and out there when at first they weren't even allowed to come over. It has been some progress, but they're still like covered head to toe and they can't do certain things and they got to move a certain way. And it's still like exactly like you're saying, they getting 5-star treatment. So your experience is not going to be the same as mine, no matter how much you try to sell me on this. But of course, who else would they send out there, Philip Lindsay? Like Bianca has made so many, she has been kind of a spokesperson and has a lot of accolades, and that and you know, is well spoken and everything they want to represent this company she has. So of course they're going to have her go out there and say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate. Um, some of the other bits around this and some of the talking points that I've already seen are pretty nasty already. Yeah, we're getting more and more to that point where it's hard to watch these things without making choices and without having to also voice your opinions on social and political things. It's hard, and it has to be twice as difficult if you work there because it's like, hey, I'm just doing my job. I signed up to be a wrestler. I signed up to wrestle on the biggest stage possible. I didn't necessarily sign up to be the propaganda arm for another country, but that's where we are. Um,